Okay, so today we are going to be looking at ways in which we can make faux ceramic pendants and things. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that I'm going to start off with today. This is the first one I'm going to show you, and there are a few steps for it, so hopefully you can make along with me, or certainly if not, grab a cuppa and watch along with me anyway. So this is what we're looking to do today. Okay, so first things first. Now, to create the first part of this, we are going to be using a mould. Now you can use commercial moulds for this, no problem, but what is quite fun to do is actually to create your own moulds as well. So I thought I'd start off with that. Good morning, Moni. I thought I'd start off with that first of all. So what you need for this is a 2-part silicone moulding putty. Now there are various brands out there. Hebio do Siligum. I'm trying to think, there's like an easy mould. This one I've got here actually is like a, I think it might be, it says it's food safe. This one's a bit stickier, and this one doesn't, it takes a little bit longer to actually set. Some of the other ones are very, very quick. They take like 3, 4, 5 minutes. This one does take a bit longer, so I will show you how I don't put it to one side and show you when it's set, but I have got some pre-made ones already that I can use. So essentially this stuff is a 2-part piece, and you mix equal parts of it together. Morning, Pauline. If I miss anybody, I do apologize. I'm just going to bring my, hopefully bring my comments up so I can see as well on my Kindle. Good morning, Marlon and Moni and Pauline. Okay, so with this stuff, it's basically a 2-parter, and you have to mix it together so that it is basically one colour, and then you know it's evenly mixed. This stuff is softer and stickier than the stuff I've used before. I have used Siligum before. That is a little bit easier, but this still does the job, and it was a little bit cheaper. I think I probably got it off either eBay or Amazon, somewhere like that, one of the online stores. So you basically keep mixing it all up. I quite like to do, and I suppose the one thing about this actually which is helpful is it does have a slower curing time. It means I've got more time to work with this. If you've got a cure time of sort of 5 minutes, then you do have to be quite fast, so I tend to get everything set up that I want to before I start working. So this, here we are, we have, there's probably enough to do a couple on this one actually, and you can see then once it's evenly mixed, okay, it's one colour. There shouldn't be any marbling or anything like that in it. So if you haven't used this before, and I apologise if you have used this before, I'm just going to go and assume that you don't know, you've not used it before and you don't know. So all I'm going to do now is flatten it out a little bit, and I'm going to put it on a tile, okay, and it's going to stay on this tile until it actually has cured. So I'm just going to smooth it over my finger. This one is a bit squidgier, so don't panic too much, to be honest, about the shape of it, because I'm actually going to flatten it in a minute anyway. So I've just popped it onto a tile. And then all I do is I'll go and have a little raid in the garden and see if I can find something, or if you find anything on the floor when you're out and about, because obviously you're not allowed to pick wildflowers and things. But if you find anything on the floor on your walks, or you've got some nice things in your garden, all I'm going to do then is I'm literally going to take it and I'm going to pop it, but I want to arrange it in a nice way so I can see the bits I want to see on it. So I'm popping it onto the silicone, okay, and pressing it in gently. And then what I'm going to do, if I remember, I did have it out here if I can find it a moment. Here we go. I've got one of those, you know, those acrylic sheets that you can get. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press that on the top, because not only does it then flatten the mould, okay, but it ensures that this is all pressed in properly, okay. And then I'm just going to leave it now. All right, so that nest needs to now stay like that until it's cured. Now, how can you tell if it's cured? Well, if you pop your finger into the, let's just pop something into that for a minute. If you pop your finger into it and it doesn't leave a mark, or you press your nail into it and it pops back up again, it's cured, okay? If you press into it and there is a mark, it basically means it needs a bit longer. So it's just something to bear in mind when you're, so I'm just adjusting my thing here for a minute. So something to bear in mind then when you are leaving it to cure, just give it long enough so that when you press your nail in, it pings back up again. If you still see the mark, it's not ready, leave it a bit longer, okay? So that's the one, that's the first thing. All right, now I've done several of these, and I absolutely love them because they are really natural things to use. So I've got some examples here of things that I've made. I've got a whole load of these, and I like them because you get a very organic feel. There's nothing to stop you though doing the same sort of thing using manufactured ones if you don't have this as well, but something to bear in mind, okay? You can do this later. Now this is actually a homemade mix I found. You can find a homemade mix with, you know, the silicone tubes that you use to seal in your bathroom. I think it's got mineral oil, maybe something like corn flour or that kind of thing, and the silicone stuff that you squeeze out and do your seals within your bathroom. There is a homemade recipe for that. It is a bit smellier, okay, and they don't obviously last as long, but it is a good sort of starting point if you haven't got the two-part, okay. So that's what I'm going to do there. So whilst I've got that, so the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to show you how I would use one of these to create the basic pendant. So I'm using white clay. The reason why I'm using white clay is because when I colour with alcohol inks, I'm going to end up obviously with a much purer true colour of the inks. Okay, so let's just take that little bit off, and I'm going to thin it. I'm going to put it through on the thicker setting of my pasta machine, okay, to make sure it's fully conditioned. If at any point you've got any questions as I go along, please shout. Just ask me. I have popped up my tablet today so that hopefully I can keep an eye on comments and things as well. There's a slight delay on my tablet to on the recording, so I might have to catch myself up in a minute. Hi Tracy. Is that Eleni? Eleni? I don't know how to say it, sorry, I apologise. Eleni, maybe? Anyway, good morning, welcome, thank you for joining me. So this white is a Fimo. You can do any clay with this one, any of it will be fine. The only thing I think possibly won't take the impressions quite so well is Kato, so I would stick with something like Cernit, Fimo, Sculpey, something like that, one of the softer clays to work with, because you need it to take the impressions quite easily. So all I'm doing now is getting a piece of clay. Morning Tanya. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pick one of my moulds. Let's go for, let's have a look what I have done some, so here's one I've done earlier. I'm going to use this one here, okay. Now I'm going to take my sheet of clay and I'm actually going to cut it into 4. Now you may look at that and think, well surely that's not going to cover it, but I'll show you what I do with this and you'll see how this works out. I find when I'm working with moulds, they can slip and slide around when you're trying to put clay into it, so this is sort of the way I go and do this. So I'm going to stack these 4 layers up. I'll move that out of the way, sorry, I'm not going to be able to see anything. So I've got a fairly thick stack, so that's 4 pieces at number 1 on the pasta machine, okay? And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to press it onto, with my heel of my hand, I'm going to press that into, I like to stand up to do this so I can look down and see what I'm doing. I'm going to press that onto the mould with the heel of my hand. Now the reason why I do that is to get some adhesion between the mould and the clay, so that when I put my roller on, it stops it moving around, okay? So with it like that now, take your roller and then just roll it out so it's a little bit more even. It is rustic, you're not going to get it absolutely even and perfect in thickness, it doesn't matter. This is a very, very rustic technique, this, okay? So that's what I've done at the minute. Okay, so everybody can see that. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel it off. And what you can see then I've got, hopefully you can see there, is the impression of the mould. If it doesn't look as detailed as you want it, just roll it all up, do the same process again and keep going until you've got something that you are happy with, you've got a good impression. I find by going for 4 layers, you're more likely to fill the deeper parts of the mould. If you've got a very shallow mould, you won't probably need to do as many as that. Okay, so that gives me that. So now I've got to decide, okay, what I want to do now is decide which part of that I'm going to use. So this is where I get a cutter. Now I haven't got any cling film, okay, but what you can do when you're using cutters to shape is you can cut through cling film and it gives a beveled edge to it. I don't have any cling film, I can't find it, don't know what I've done with it. So I'm just going to go and cut it with a normal cutter. Excuse me, I'm just having a little coffee as I go. And then I'll just use my finger just to smooth round. So just pick yourself any cutter that you want to use to shape it, and then again I like to stand up and look down because you can see exactly what you're doing, and cut your shape out. Okay, and I like to take the clay away from the piece rather than pulling it off that way, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to lift this up so you can see. So what I have there now is my piece that I've cut out. Okay, but if you can see, if I do that, look, you can. Okay, sorry, I've got an interruption with the call there. Yeah, so hopefully you can see now that you can see the relief on that there. Okay. So So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my finger around the edges and just smooth them. We will do some sanding, but obviously the more work that you can do now, okay, to smooth it off, the less you'll have to do later. Okay. Now, what you can do now, obviously when it comes to using this later, you can obviously draw through it. Sorry, my children's friends keep ringing. Yeah, so I'm just going to reply to that. Yeah, so what you can do is you can pop a pin through it, like a bead piercing pin. So if you want to make it into like a pendant, which is what I've done, you can use a glue and bail at the back of it. You could obviously stick a bell on, you know, that sort of thing. It's up to you entirely how you want to do this. I'm just going to reply to this. Just replying to that message so they don't keep ringing. Right, okay, so as I was. So what I did was I used a bead piercing pin, okay? So I would rather do this now, make a mistake and be able to re-roll it, than try and draw through this later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bead piercing pin because I want to be able to put this as like a dangle so I can put something through it. So with the bead piercing pins, these are quite fine and quite sharp. When I put them in, I'm going to obviously keep an eye on how straight it is. I'm always going to keep looking from the top and from the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it very gently, and I do mean twist, do not push it, because if you push it, it distorts the overall bit of the clay. And keep checking, keep looking at it as you go to make sure that you're heading in the right direction, that you're not going to come out the top or onto the side, okay? So I keep going, and hopefully you'll be able to see it pops through the side in a minute. Oops, like no, there you see I've gone slightly too low, so I'm just going to take it back. It is a bit of practice. But just go, there we go. Okay, so that's something that you can do. If you want to turn this into something that you can then string like that, you could put the pin through before you bake. Alright, but I would go with the bead piercing pin rather than say something like a cocktail stick, so that would be a bit thick. Okay, so that's what I would do for that. You don't have to, as I say, you can if you want to, you can just glue a bail on the back, or you could just drill through and make holes to sort of hang it there. Alright, but that's just a suggestion anyway, which is what I've done with some others. So that's the first thing to do, will be to get those pieces, and you need to get them into the oven. Okay, do you want sorry, I've just got okay, so do you want a minute to do that, or do you want me to show you what we do next? Because I'm quite happy either way. Let me know. But that's the very first part of it, is to make that and then pop it into the oven to cure. Okay, now I tend to, if I'm going to do this, especially if I've got a thicker piece, I would probably pop it in for probably 45 minutes to an hour at the manufacturer's recommended temperatures. Okay, a lot of it, it's not so much the overall size, it's the thickness, and I like to do mine probably for a good hour, okay, to make sure that they are fully cured, and they'll be more stable and they'll have a longer life long term. Okay, so in True Blue Peter style, and other programs are available, here is one that I made earlier. Okay, and this is one that I hope you might be able to see. I have put a drill hole through using the pin. Okay, so the next thing for that one will be then to sand it. Okay, and all I'm trying to do really with this is just get rid of any rough edges before we then start to colour it. So just take a, doesn't have to be particularly, I want to go too high a grit, but literally all I'm just going to do is just literally take it along the edge, just to refine any loose bits. Sometimes when you've got cutters that have a seam, you can get a little overlapping part, and you might just want to just get rid of that. So on here, look, you can see there, you might be able to see there's a little bit of an overlap there with the seam, so I'm just going to sand that back. If you've got seamless cutters, obviously you won't have that problem. So, but this is probably maybe a 180, so it's a coarser grit, and as I say, I'm just tidying up the edges. That's all I do. Don't touch the bit on the top. We need to keep that part nice and raised in order for us to do the next part. But it's super quick, this part. Okay, and so get it in the oven. This is now, it's very firm, it's well baked, well cured. Okay, so I can drop it and it's not going to break. Okay, So that's the next bit then. So once you've made them, you're gonna sand the sides and just run your finger over and just make sure that it feels smooth. I always like to do this to make sure that my pieces are as professionally finished as I can. I know these are rustic style, but you still want them to have a nice overall finish. So just run your finger along and check that you're happy with the smooth, especially if it's going to sit against your skin as well. You want it to be, you don't want any sharp edges basically. Okay, so that's the next bit. All right, so once you've done that, that's where we're at. Now the next bit, fun part here, comes to colouring it. So this is where I bring in the alcohol inks. Now, I would recommend that you make sure you have on your table a surface, because I've done this before and I've actually ended up ruining my, not ruining as such, but I've ended up, let's just have a look, I've just ended up spoiling, you know, clothes, bits on the table, that kind of thing, because if you get alcohol inks on your clothes, anything else, it's not going to come off. Okay, so next part then, I would recommend also wearing gloves, because at times I've actually come away with stained fingers you wouldn't believe. So I'm just going to see if I've got, there they are. So grab yourself a pair of gloves as well when you're working with alcohol inks. Another good thing to have to hand is your isopropyl alcohol and some kitchen roll to clean up as well. So I'm going to pop these on here. So do watch your clothes, your work surfaces, your hands, okay? Because you will not get these out if you get them all over. I have had blue, green fingers for days with this. Okay, so here we are. Here's our pendant so far. Now you don't need many colours for this one at all, okay? 2, maybe 3 at the most, all right? So because I've got sort of plan, I'm probably going to go with a red and maybe a green on the background, okay? They're opposites on the colour wheel. So if you want something to pop, really pop, you can go for opposites on the colour wheel. Or if you want something a little bit more subtle, maybe look for analogous colours. But to be honest, I find it works best if you've got colours that are quite different, so you get the contrast, okay? So first thing I'm going to do then, I'm going to grab I've got a red alcohol ink, and you don't need much of these. A little bit goes a very, very long way. And let's see, what have I got? I'm using the Tim Holtz Adirondack, you know, the Ranger inks, alcohol inks. I quite like those ones. There are other ones too that you can get. But I do quite like the Ranger ones. They seem to dry quite quick as well. Right, let's go for what have I got here. That one says pool. I think that's a bit more bluey green. Let's have a quick look what I've got here. Mushroom, oregano. Let's go for that one. Okay, so I've got 2 here. This one's called oregano. This is green, and this one is called red pepper. But it doesn't matter. You can choose what you like. Okay. So again, with these, the colours will mix with each other on it. That's what you want. You want it all to be very rustic. So please don't feel you have to be able to paint beautifully for this one. You do not at all. Okay. So I'm just going to pop a drop on here, and I will try and hold this up for you as I go along so you can see. All I'm going to do is take my brush, and I'm just going to put it roughly where I want it to go. And it is that imprecise. Okay, we're not looking for precision here. I'm just going to roughly colour the areas with my ink. That brush actually probably is not helping, that's better. And you only need 2 or 3 colours. To be honest, most of the time I just use 2. I'll show you how we're going to get that depth of it, make it look like it is ceramic soon. I might possibly put a 3rd one on here because I've got a stalk. So you can see, look, literally you haven't got to be the best artist in the world. I've literally put the red over that area, okay, where the main flower part is. Do either use a separate brush or clean your brushes in between, because alcohol inks do mix very well. They are harder to get off your brush, so you might want to do that as you go along. So I'm just going to pop a little bit on here just to clean my brush off a little bit. And also it's great for clearing up any spills you might have as well. You can see already, look, this is why I wear gloves. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit of green on around the background, and I'm just going to drop a bit on there, and I'm going to spread it around. If you end up with it kind of like getting sort of pooly type patterns on it, brilliant. Again, it's all adds to the look of a faux ceramic glaze, okay? So again, this is a lovely technique because you just do not need to worry about it being dead precise. So for all of you that are going, I'm not an artist, you don't have to be at all. So I'm just dropping it a little bit on, and then I'm spreading it around with the brush. I'll I'll just pick it up and show you in a second, but hopefully you can see some of it from here. This is quite a nice organic-y type green, this one. But you can use it, say, whatever you like. And where the colours meet, you will get them mixed a little bit. Again, brilliant. Okay, don't worry if you get any spillage out or any merging of colours. It just all adds to that whole lovely faux ceramic look. Okay, and when it dries, you might find there's little bits of lines. Again, it just mimics the natural glazing process with ceramics anyway. So that's what we want. That's why I like to use these. I think it gives a much more realistic look to it. And the nice thing about these, of course, if you're making your own moulds, is they're completely unique. Nobody's going to have one like you, which is another thing I like about these. I notice I'm going around the sides as well. You will have to repeat this process on the back, but I'm just going to show you the front for today. Obviously pop your lids on these as well when you're done, because the alcohol inks do evaporate. Okay, so, oh actually I need a bit more of that red, Mr. Berry. I'll show you this one I've done, and then what I'm going to do, so if you look at this, you can see, look, how the wonderful natural patterns you get on it that come with the alcohol inks. It's so pretty. Okay, I am going to pop a third colour on because I want to make the stalk slightly different, so I'm going to go for, I've got a colour called Ginger, so I'm going to go for that. And what I've got to do then, we've got to let this completely dry. Do go around when you think you're finished and just check that you've coloured all the bits you want to, because sometimes when you look at it from the side you can see there's little bits of white. So do turn it and look at it from all angles to make sure you're happy with everything you've got on there. Okay, so that's where we're at the minute. So that's where I put the colours on. Okay, so now we need to let that completely dry. Alcohol inks on a warm day will dry fairly fast. Don't put it in the oven though, because I find the heat affects the alcohol inks. They're not as vibrant and as colourful, so just let it dry naturally. Okay, so again, make sure you pop your lids on your alcohol inks and pop them to one side. Right, so that's the 2 steps so far. Trying to be organised here. There we go, just going to clean my board off. Alright, so when it's dry, next part of it then, so I've got another one here that I did earlier. Okay, so this is one that I did where I put the red on and I put the blue on the background. Now what we need to do now is we need to start to bring out some of this detail. So this is where we're going to go in, and we are going to add some burnt acrylic umber paint. Now please don't panic when I do this, because you might think, oh my goodness, she's covering it all in brown paint. Please trust me, it'll start to bring out some of the detail. Okay, so I couldn't find it this morning. I've been so tidy. I don't know what I've done with it, but I've got some Liquitex paint here. It's just a basic acrylic paint. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bit of water, which I forgot, one thing I did forget, and I'm going to water that down slightly. If you're using a normal, something like a Deco Art or Americana one, I wouldn't worry about that, okay? It's just because this is a thicker paint. And I'm actually now going to cover the whole thing with paint. This is why some people go, oh, what are you doing, what are you doing? But honestly, trust me, please trust me, okay? So you want to make sure you get into all the grooves, okay? So what we're kind of doing is adding low lights, if you like, to this. So make sure you get in to all the texture on the piece. Okay, and then what you want to do is grab a tissue, a baby wipe, anything like that. And what we're going to do now is take the paint off the higher points of this, okay? And what it will do now is it will leave paint in the deeper parts. And what this will do now when you take it off is starts to help to bring out some of that detail that you have, as well as giving it more of a little antique kind of look as well. You won't be able to get into all the little groovy bits, okay? So can you see here already, look now, that's beginning to bring out the texture. So that's why we do it. It gives a bit of an antique look, but it also helps us pick up that detail from the actual flower itself now. And again, you won't be able to rub off the alcohol inks. The alcohol inks will stay. These don't actually affect it. So obviously don't take a alcohol, isopropyl alcohol to it. That will pull it off. But you can clean these, no problem at all, just using a normal baby wipe. And again, we need to let that dry before we do any more. So just make sure, go around and check you're happy. I do like using the brown because you can see, look, it does add a little, it just changes the background of it a little bit and adds that nice kind of antique look. And that's just a normal acrylic paint. You can use, as I say, I think it's Deco Art is a range, or Americana, something like that is a range that I often use, but don't know what I've done with it today, so I'm going with something different. Use what you've got. Okay, so when you think you're happy with it, all right, and you've got it, just stop there and you need to let that dry. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a moment just to do that. I've got this one is probably dry now. Yeah, okay, that's already dry, so I'll do the same with this one as well, and then I'll show you what we do next. So do you want to have a go at doing that with yours? I'm just going to get a bit more water just to bring this down slightly. I am in my kitchen, so you might find that we get the odd bit of movement, but bear with me. So yeah, so this is the one I just did. The alcohol inks have already dried. It's quite warm actually here as well, so that does help speed things up a little bit. Pop your paint over, make sure you get in all the grooves, particularly of the raised parts, in between all the raised parts. Don't be afraid to get in there. This is all part of the process. Okay, and then while the paint's still wet, take it off the top and the surroundings, and you'll be left then with all that beautiful detail coming out. Is it possible to put the pictures of the colours and tools in a post? Yeah, sure, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I can do that, no problem. The main products that I've used, yeah? Yeah, I'll do that before I tidy up when I'm finished. Okay, so here we are, look, see? Isn't that lovely? Now you might decide that you want to do the back as well. You find the same process with the back. So obviously at the moment it's white. You can put the alcohol inks on the back. You can then just antique it a little bit with the browns over it, and then obviously you've got the back is done as well. Okay, so I'm not going to do that today, obviously for the purposes of this. I'll just sort of tell you that, you know, I will probably do this now, let that dry, then do the same on the back. Okay, and then we can carry on from there. So again, we just let that dry. It won't take long, especially when you've got heat with this. Most acrylic paints will dry within 10 minutes. Especially if you've got good, you know, warm weather and things as well. So yeah, that won't take long at all. Now there is another step to this as well, okay, which helps us kind of like highlight the piece as well. Just having a slurp of my coffee, bear with me. At this, yeah, as I say, everything must dry naturally. I wouldn't put anything with alcohol inks back in the oven. I have found by experience it does mean that it loses its colours. It's not as great, it's not as vibrant. So now we need to go back and get our sanding paper. Okay, so this is now how we can bring out the highlights and again pull up that detail as well from the piece. So if I go back to this one that I did here, all right, what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to do, I'm very gently, I'm now going to just sand the high parts. And what this is going to do is it's going to reveal some of the original clay underneath, okay, on some of the higher parts. And again, this is another way that you can bring out that detail. So just very gently, with sandpaper's fine as well if you'd rather not use a block, whatever you've got to hand is fine. But you can see as I start to pull it back, and you see again how it starts to pull out some more of that detail. Okay, so if you find your blocks too rigid in shape, just grab a bit of sandpaper and do it that way. And I just like to go along the tops of any kind of like stalks or stems, anything like that. And what this is going to do is it's just going to pull out those few little extra details. Obviously don't stand too hard, we're not trying to remove the actual, you don't want to actually remove the polymer clay itself. you're just trying to remove the surface treatment. All right. And you just keep going until you're happy with it. Obviously you don't want to remove all the colour, we need some colour. But you'll just hit a point where you think, nope, that's it, and then just stop. You can overdo it. If that happens though, just repaint it. Just go back in with your alcohol inks again. If you make that mistake, I think I've gone too far, then just go back with your alcohol inks. Okay, and there we can see, look, now that has transformed it. Okay, hi Anne, how are you? Yeah, so that's, you know, pulled out some of the highlights. So what we've done is we've given it low lights with the acrylic paint, and then we're using the sandpaper just to take that top part off there, okay, which will give us those highlights of that piece. All right, so I tend to find what I end up doing is doing these in batches. So I'll do a batch of the basic pendants first, then I'll do a batch and I'll colour them all, then I'll do a batch where I antique them all. So it's quite nice. It's quite an easy one to do in bulk, this one, okay, and do a few pieces at a time. All right, so that's that part there. So what we're going to do next is we're going to put the acrylic glaze on, and then whilst that is going, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the other way of doing it, because we need to let the acrylic crackle glaze dry before we can go any further. So I'm just going to sand this one as well, and then we'll put it on both of them, and then you can see the results. So this is the one I've just done. Again, the ink's dry very fast. I'm just going to try and create some highlights on the piece. And so you can see, look how it's pulling that detail out. I love this. This is one of my favourite, I have to say, one of my favourite techniques. I've been doing this one a little while. I have taught it as well in workshops too, so you are getting essentially a workshop for free here. So we end up then getting that, which is gorgeous, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, if you do go too far and remove the colour, just go back in, same process again, and just add a little bit more ink onto the top. Because you've taken it back to the polymer, it'll take the colour again, no problem. So it's something you could do if you wanted to experiment as well. Take it back, some of it back, put a different colour on, and then go back in and highlight it again. So you could experiment like that if you wanted to as well. Okay, all right, so that's that part. So we've got two now here. So the next stage then is going to be actually put the crackle glaze on. All right, now I have got a couple of different ones actually. I've got, this is one I use most. Okay, so this is the it's the Deco Art One Step Crackle. Okay, so this is just what it says on the tin. It is a one-step crackle. The other one I've got, and I might try a bit of both, is called Weathered Wood. Okay, and that's also a crackle medium as well. Now these do work better over paint, which is another reason for putting on that little layer of the brown paint as well. Now it goes over a painted surface. All right, it dries completely clear. Probably takes a couple of hours maybe, but we'll see how we go. I might be able to sort of speed that process up a little bit anyway. The thicker you put it on, obviously the longer it takes to dry, but the bigger the crackles, and the thinner layer you put it on, the smaller the crackles. Now obviously for pieces this size you don't want it to go too heavy with it, and also I find the best thing as well is actually not to move it around too much with the brush. The places you're going to get the best crackle on are actually going to be these flat areas there. So when you are cutting your piece out, okay, something to bear in mind, you do want to keep some of that flat area because that will show the crackles off nicely. It won't be so obvious on the raised parts, it's on the crackly bits and the flat bits where the crackle shows the most. So what I'm going to do now, hi Sammy, yeah, it's good fun actually. I'm going to take another brush and again I'm going to squeeze it on, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit. I don't want to overdo it though. As I say with this, don't overbrush it. Okay, just get it on where you need it. So I popped a blob on and I'm just going to spread it. I am going to go over the whole thing, but don't keep going back over each area. Do the area you need, try not to overbrush. And just, I'm doing it thinner because I want smaller crackles. And that is it. Now that needs to dry. Okay, I'll go and probably pop it into my conservatory. It's a bit warmer in there, so it might go a little bit faster. And whilst it's drying, I'll show you the next bit of this. And again, same here, look. Just going to pop it on. Try not to keep painting over the same area because it does look better if you don't do that. Over the top of the whole piece. It's not expensive, this stuff. I mean, this one I paid £2.50 for. So So it's not an expensive medium, and again, you can have so much fun with it. I would highly recommend getting it. I think I got mine probably from Amazon, somewhere like that. So that's that part done. Okay, so I'm going to pop the lid on that now, and I will go in a minute, go and pop it in my conservatory just to let it dry. Okay, so that's the stage that we're at now, and that will dry, and as it dries it will form some crackles. It won't be so easy to see yet because we have to go back in and we have to do something to highlight those crackles, but that is the next part. Okay, so whilst I'm doing that, what I would like you to do, if you're joining along with it, we're going to make we're going to have us go at the other way of creating a faux ceramic effect. Okay, so I want to show you that bit next. So if you have some white clay and the granite clay, go ahead and mix a bit of it up. I'm just going to put these in the conservatory and I will be back in a moment. Okay, so next one then. Now I'm going to take the gloves off now, I don't need that for the minute. It's into a pile of these at the moment with the everywhere I go. Right, okay, so I'm going to go back and work with white clay again. Now I did mention using the granite clay, so Sculpey do a granite clay, but if you don't have that but you have some embossing powders, we can create that effect. So what we're trying to create is kind of like a little crackly effect in the clay that we use. Alright, so let's work that one out first. So I could just find what I've done now with my white clay, which I've been too tidy with. Where have I put it? Bear with me a moment. Oh, it's right in front of me. Isn't that always the way? Yeah, I'm running out of white clay, so I'm going to have to put another order in. Alright, so again, you want to chop a bit of your clay off. Now, where's my granite? I've got some granite somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it now. I'll show you how to work with the embossing powders anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this out. Hi, thank you for coming back. I do apologise about that. I've actually gone on with my tablet now, so hopefully that one will stay put and behave itself. Can't get the angle quite right, so I'll try and hold things up and show you. Okay, so as I was saying before, now we're going to try and make a piece of clay that has got a sort of granite type look, you know, like a ceramic thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a little bit of the embossing powder on here. I'm just going to spread it over the surface, okay? You don't need an awful lot. This is quite a fine one. If you've got a brown coloured one or anything like that, you can do that as well. It's not a problem. But the idea is we're going to create a speckled effect in the clay, okay? So that's what we're going to do here. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to put it through my machine. And we keep doing that until the clay has been fully mixed up with the embossing powder. You can begin to see, look, how it's starting to come through there. And it just gives a really nice speckly look. It's like you sometimes get, you see, when you're looking at the clay. Obviously you can see there it's still banded, it's not completely mixed through yet. So I'm just going to keep going until I've got it completely mixed. There we go, so that's so much more even. It just gets a nice little sort of speckledy look to it. Hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to find the best place to show you on the camera. There we go. Okay, so that's going to give us our base. Now I'm going to use this mould here. Okay, this is a commercial mould. You can use any mould you like. I've got other ones as well. I've got a peacock, I've got fairies, I've got leaves, you can do whatever you like, to be honest. But it's going to be the same idea as before. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into 4. And stack it as before. Now this is a big mould. You don't actually have to use the whole mould. You can just do part of it and cut part of it out. But something that's got quite a good relief, good pattern like this is really good, because we're going to use liquid clay and we want it to sit in all the little grooves and things. So something that's got a good relief on it would work really well for this rather than something shallow. Okay, so again, as before, I'm going to pop it onto my mould and I'm going to use the heel of my hand just to get us started. and press it into the mould. Bearing in mind, I know this isn't even, okay, it's not going to be. Okay, so I'm just pressing it in to get me started, and I'm going to take my roller and I'm going to roll this out so it's roughly even. Doesn't have to be completely. Okay, when you're happy with that, what you can do at this point as well, if you want to, is you can take, if you want to texture the back, you can pop a fine sort of sponge-like texture on the back. You can roll that over as well. So if you want to create texture on the back, you can do that. Okay. My hubby's coming in, just to better warn him. Hi, I'm live, just to warn you. Okay, so you've got a nice texture back to it as well if you want. You don't have to, okay? And then I'm going to peel it away from the mould. Notice I'm just gently easing the mould all the way around rather than just pulling it straight out. Okay, and you can see here, look at that, isn't that gorgeous? Now I'm just going to cut a shape from that, so I'm not going to use the whole thing, I'm just going to use part of it. So, I'm going to use a round cutter, I think. And again, I'm looking at it down to cut, I'm looking at it down. And again, I'm going to go through with putting my hand across the cutter and pressing straight down. Beveled edge, use cling film over the piece, okay, and cut through the cling film if you want the beveled edge. But as I say, I haven't got any at the moment, so. And again, I always leave my work on there, and I always take the clay from around the edge first. I just find that works best. And there we go, we have another lovely piece to work with. Okay, so I'll just try and hold that up so you can see. Maybe that may be better. There we go, hopefully you can see that. I'm trying not to drop it at the same time. So you can see we've got quite good texture in that, and that's what we want. So again, going through and smoothing around the edges, it just reduces any kind of rougher bits, less sanding work later. So, you know, if you can do that, you might as well just save yourself a bit of time. So again, now I will go and put that and cure that in the oven. Okay. So I'm going to obviously keep any bits of scraps of clay because you can roll them all up again, and you can repeat the same process with other pieces. Now, next thing I want to do, now I have got one, there's one I made earlier, let's just see if I can find where I put it. Definitely had one I'd already done. Okay, just going to grab it if I can find where I put it. Got too much stuff on the table. Lost it. Where's it gone? Oh, sorry guys, just give me a minute. I'm trying to find what I've done with it. I had one that I'd already made and I can't find it now. Isn't that typical? Definitely was out. It's probably right in front of me and I'm staring at it and I can't see it. Okay, right, I'll look at that for that in a minute. Right, oh no, it's right here. It is right in front of me. I knew I'd got it somewhere. Okay, here we are. So this one, I did a big piece and I actually just used my needle tool to cut it out. Okay, so I've got the piece there like that. So once it's out again, you need to sand it. I do apologise that I managed to lose that again. You need to go around and sand it again, okay, just again to smooth the edges. So, again, right in front of me. Do you know, honestly, I am organised really. I had everything out in front of me, and it's always the way I can't see things when I want them. That's why, it's because I'm propping up my thing with it. Okay, I'm just going to grab a bit of sandpaper out of the box. What I've got here, there we go. So I've used it to prop up my tablet so I can't find it. Alright, so again, go around the edges and just again, oh, it was interrupted for some reason. Yeah, so just take your sandpaper and again go around and just sand the edges just to make sure that you're happy with the finish of them there. So something like a 180, 220, 320, you know, that sort of thing would be enough just to smooth it all off. And again, I'm not looking for perfection because these are going to be rustic pieces when they're finished. If you want to, at this point, drill any holes in it, okay, now's a good time to do that, because see, look at the back, it's got that nice grainy effect. That's what I like about this, and this will show through a bit when we actually work with putting the colours on. Okay, so we're going to use liquid clay and alcohol inks to actually provide like a glaze for this one. What will happen is the glaze will settle in between the textures and create this sort of faux ceramic look. So I'm going to grab, I've got one of these little trays here. I'm just going to pop some liquid clay into it. You're not going to need loads, to be honest. I might only just use a couple of colours, you know, it's up to you, you can experiment and see. Okay, now this is Kato clay. You could also, you want one that's going to go fairly clear. I mean, Kato is renowned for going crystal clear when you heat it with a heat gun. But with their Sculpey do a completely clear one now, transparent one, and Fimo one as well is quite good as well. So you could use any of those. Any of the ones that go quite clear will work. And I'm going to go back and use the alcohol inks again. So I'm just thinking what colours. I might go for a bit purple. I do like purple. What you want to do is just put a drop of the purple onto one of your palettes. So I'm just going to do that and I'll show you what I've done. So you probably, I'll put 2 drops. In fact, they do come out quite quick. Don't mix it in at this point. The reason being, we need to let the alcohol kind of like evaporate. So you just want to give it a couple of minutes, okay, to let the alcohol evaporate before we then actually mix them in. So let me just show you what I've done here, look. Okay, so you can see there, whoops, yeah, I can't do it too much, otherwise it's all going to spill. But I put the liquid clay in there, and I put the alcohol on top, and I'm just going to give it a minute, just to let the alcohol evaporate of the inks. And then you're going to grab yourself a cocktail stick, and we're going to mix it all in. So, mixing the alcohol inks in with the liquid clay. Okay, I'm using a different cocktail stick for each one. So I'm going to end up now with 2 colours. I can't just tilt it too much, I don't want it to spill out, but I've got 2 colours there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to use some cocktail sticks to get it into. I don't really want to put my brushes on these, because the problem with using the brushes with this stuff is it's quite hard to get out again. So I'm just going to pop it onto my tile. I'm going to pop it onto my piece like this, and I'm going to just use the cocktail stick just to spread it around on the top. And this is going to go completely clear, okay, well, I say complete, it's going to be obviously be coloured, but it's going to have a translucent quality, which is why we went for using the grains in it, because again that's going to help give it that sort of more ceramic-y kind of look. So you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'm adding the colour. And so this is just liquid clay, a little bit of alcohol ink mixed in, but let the alcohol burn off first. And what will happen with this is it will move and it will begin to sit in any of the grooves and things that you've got in the design. It will settle. That's what we want. So if you're looking at it thinking, oh, it's moving, don't worry, that is exactly what we want. It will go away from the edges slightly again. When you're doing ceramic work, actually with true ceramics, you are going to get that movement with the glazes, okay? So this is all good, this is exactly what we want, okay? And I'm going to put a little bit of blue into the centre as well. So I'm just, because these are disposable, they're cheap, I can get rid of them, I don't have to worry then about, you know, washing up and stuff. Trying to get my brushes clean afterwards, because it is a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Try and get liquid clay out of brushes. I do have one dedicated brush, and I just sort of wipe off the excess, and I wrap it in cling film, and I just keep that then when I want to work with the liquid clay. So I'm just taking this into the middle. And before we do any more now, we need to let this sort of sit and set. not set, sorry, sit and just settle. That's the word I'm looking for. We need to let it settle now, okay? So let it move around and let it settle into the gaps in between the raised parts of your piece, all right? Okay, so if you've then got, when it's done that and you're happy with it and it's settled, I'm not going to tip this up my show because that's going to defeat the object of it. Then you need to pop this back into the oven. If you're using something like Fimo gel or transparent liquid Sculpey, bung them back in the oven. What I can do with this is I can actually use a heat gun, which I might try and do in a minute, or I might have to go off camera to do it. Now with Kato liquid clay, the heat gun will cure it. Would I use it like? I don't know. To be honest, I have not had a lot of success cleaning it off brushes, which is why when I'm working I have a dedicated brush for that if I want to join stuff together or use something disposable. I don't know is the honest answer to that one. You give it a try and see, but don't do it on a great quality brush. If you're going to try and see, just do it on a cheap one and see whether or not that would work. As I say, I just keep one normally just for the purposes of just joining cured and uncured clay together. What you could do with this as well, if you want to move it out a bit, is take a cocktail stick and then you could just kind of move some of what I'm doing. Again, I'll try and show you this. What I'm doing is I'm just taking the cocktail stick and I'm just dragging out the central colour. So I put pink on the edge, okay, and then I put the blue into the middle, and I'm just using a cocktail stick just to drag it out a little bit so the colour's dragging out, so it doesn't look so much like a blob, a bit more natural. And what you'll find is you start to see some of the raised parts start to appear as the liquid clay settles in the piece. I'm going to have to find a better way for filming, I think, so I can maybe have like 2 different cameras or something like that. It's a bit tricky. I'm not overly tech savvy like that, so I'll have to do a bit of research on what I can do there. Okay, so that can go back into the oven, okay? What I might do is pop it back in for a minute just to get it completely set, and then what I can do then is I can do the heat gun just to finish it off. So liquid clay, Kato is the only one you can do this with. Do not try and use a heat gun on any other ones, okay? What it can do is it can set it, and then by continuing to heat it, it then goes really, really shiny. But if you go too far with it, you'll end up burning it, okay? And you will get fumes and everything. So it's something to be careful of, all right? But I'm going to pop this into the oven just for a minute, just to set it, okay? So I can show you what it looks like, and then I'll use the heat gun to finish it off. So whilst it's setting in the oven, I will go back and have a look at the other one and see how our glaze is doing, okay? So hold that. Okay, right, good news. This looks as though it has set. Okay, now it's quite hard to see on here. You won't when it's dry. It is quite. Well, that's okay, Sammy. No, I'm happy to sort of share. So what we have to do now, you can't see it at the moment. We have to put something on it now to kind of highlight the cracks. Okay. And it takes a little while for them to see. They'll be quite fine, all right? But what we need to do now is go back now, and we need to create a wash with our burnt umber paint. Okay, so we are going to thin this quite a bit, because what we want to do is make it fine enough so that it will sit in the gaps. So what I'm going to do is put a little splodge of paint on my board. I'm just going to go and grab a bit of water. Okay, so I'm going to dilute this down now. I want it to be fairly runny, because if it's too thick it won't settle into those little gaps, and we need it to do that, okay, in order to show up the crackle. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I go back over it again now, but it's a much finer, much finer sort of waterier paint. So you can see, look, how it's not that thick. And just give that a minute just to sit and seep into the gaps. And then I'm going to repeat the same on this one. You tend to notice it more on the edges and things as well with this. You obviously don't want it completely covered in cracks, but it just adds that little something, you know, it just makes it look a bit more like a ceramic piece if you can have some of the cracks on them. Okay, so I'm just giving that a moment, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back again with my wipe and really just try and keep it on the surface of this one. You don't want to pull too much paint off, you want to let some of it sit in the gap, so just be quite gentle with it when you're removing the paint. So you might want to just almost dab it a little bit, really. An experiment, as I say, with this one. Sometimes I get a great crack, and sometimes, yes, it is acrylic paint. No, I use acrylic paint for this. Definitely acrylic paint. You can use some, I think you can use some oil paints for colouring and that, because it kind of soaks into the clay, but for this effect, because we want to take it off, we just want it to sit in the little gap, but you would just use acrylic paint for this one. So it's the one I used earlier to antique it, actually. So I'm just going to, and again, experiment. It's I've got a few little crackles on this one. Can be affected by the weather, and I've had some where sometimes it's really successful, and other times I don't get many cracks in it, but you know, give it a try and see. Okay, and again, just go over and just remove the excess. I see, I can see more crackles on this one. This is quite fine. Yeah, no, it definitely has crackled. I can see it has. It might be harder for me to show you on for my Kindle, but I will try. And again, you're just trying to take the excess off the top. I've got some little crackles. You might not be able to see it on here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but there's little crackles and things forming along the edge. Let's see how it goes. Sometimes, actually, if it dries a bit slower, it gives more time for the crackles to form. This is dry quite fast, so you might want to be a bit more patient than me, obviously, for the purposes of demonstration, and let it dry perhaps in a slightly cooler place. Let it dry more slowly so that you get the crackles appearing, you know, to give the chance for the crackles to develop before it dries completely. So that's just something else to give it a try and experiment and see. But yeah, I can see crackles in this one, and has got some, but that did dry pretty fast, so bear that in mind. Okay, so once that's done, okay, then you let that completely dry, okay? And then because we've got alcohol, I'll obviously then go over and finish the back. Because it's alcohol inks, you are going to have to seal it. If you try and wear this over something, you're going to ruin your top. You are going to have to seal this with varnish, okay? Because otherwise you'll end up transferring some of this to your clothes. So when you're happy with your crackle, okay, you've done it, and as I say, give it a bit longer to dry. I did do it quite fast today, to be honest, just because of the purpose of the demonstration. Let it dry, then put this on and let that dry completely, okay? And then you can then put a varnish over it. Now, my favourite varnishes are this range. It's not one typically that you would hear being mentioned, although I know Ginger Davis Ullman has recommended the Ultra one of this one on her website, the Blue Bottle Tree. This one is a gloss varnish. I love it. It is a polyurethane water-based varnishes. Now, not all varnishes will work with polymer clay. Okay, do go and read her posts about varnishes on her website, the Blue Bottle Tree. Some are not compatible. Okay, so don't just use any old one. You could have a go at redo. Yeah, if it doesn't come up as you would like it, put a new base of crackle over it again and try again. It could also be, you might want to have a little bit more acrylic paint on the bottom as well, so perhaps put another, sorry, that's my daughter, put another little bit more paint on it, and then have another go then with the crackle over the top. So yes, by all means give it another shot. But I do think if it dries very quickly, you're less likely to get the cracks. So sometimes a thicker layer can be better because it gets more time for it to develop. But as I say, you know, I'd obviously don't want you to sit here and wait for hours waiting for it to happen as part of a demo. So do experiment a bit with that as well. You know, try it with thicker layers as well. So you could put a good thick layer on and let that settle and get some bigger cracks, or do a thin layer and get the finer one. So try it and see, you know, see what you like, see what is your preferred look. But it is a good medium, as I say, and it does work. So this brand, it says the Duraclear. Now, if you're working with polymer clay, like last week's demo, I used the Duraclear on the pieces, the final pieces, but it's an ultra matte one, and it literally is completely flat matte. I've never found one to be better, to be honest. At all the varnishes, a completely flat one, ultra matte. So I've got a massive bottle of it. I love it. This one is the gloss version. Now, because you're doing a ceramic thing, you want a gloss finish on this. It just wouldn't look right if you didn't, okay? So you're going to finish that off with the gloss, okay? That's how I would finish those pieces off. And then once you've done that, obviously, then you want to go and do the backs as well. Okay, and again, put the crackle on the back too, because you'll find that it shows up beautifully on the back of that as well. So you know, people, when even if you make it for yourself or if you make it to sell, people always turn over and look at the back. They always do. Everything. So you want to make sure that the back is finished off as beautifully as the front. So the same process again. Alcohol inks on it, let it dry. Antique it again, let it dry. Crackle, let it dry. So it's a crackle on. It's a house, yeah, hey ho. And then again, put your wash over it again, and then gloss varnish it. Okay, you might want to do more than one coat of gloss varnish, depending on what finish that you get. But they do turn out, they do look lovely when you do that. So I've just come back to this one again here. So bring that in close, so you can see, look around the edge. Yeah, can you see that crackle detail there? Tends to be on the finer parts of it. That's what you'll end up getting. Okay, that nice little crackly bit that you'd expect if you fired a piece in the kiln. Alright, so that essentially is the process. So what I'll do is I'll grab the other bits out of the oven and we'll have another look at those, and I'll just see if I can bust it and finish it off. But now at least it won't move and I can show you. Right, so I'm just going to pop it onto my tile because that will then cool down a bit faster. Okay, so at the moment you can see, look, that's what I've got. So what I want to do is now pop the heat gun on it, and that will then turn that clear. Okay, so that's the case if I can do that. You'd obviously have to leave it at the right temperature in the oven to make it go clear. If you are using a different type of clay. This isn't fully cured, alright, it's only partly cured, but I just wanted to be able to show you what it looks like before it's completely cured. Okay, so I'm going to grab my heat gun. So I've got this is just a standard embossing heat gun that I've got here. So I'm just going to blast it with that. I haven't got an extension cable, I don't think. So let's see what I can do. I might be able to just about, yeah, I can just reach. Okay, so obviously this is really, really hot. Okay, it's far, far hotter than a hairdryer or anything like that. So you must make sure you keep your fingers, etc., out of the way. Okay. Back's a bit messy here, I'll have to sand that back later. I've managed to spill a bit over. Okay, so with this, okay, it is definitely not cured, but it's just enough to stop it running. So hold your heat gun above it, and you have to watch this really, really carefully. Alright, it will start to go, first of all it starts off milky, and then it starts to clear as it cures, and then it suddenly goes really shiny. And that's what you're looking for. It's the point where it's cured and it's going shiny. You'll find that the edges where it's not as thick will go first. And also beware not going in too close at a time, because obviously you can then sort of spread this around. And you don't have to do mixed colours, you could just do one. What you're watching for, hold on, just like that. What you're watching for is when it starts to go really shiny, and that's when you need to stop. You can get, yeah, I can go this way. You can get like more like a B&Q type, Black & Decker type heat gun as well, which is really strong. And I know like Debbie Crothers likes to use more powerful heat gun. This can take a bit longer than one of these. It's beginning to get shinier. Oh no, you'll just suddenly see it go. Right, now I've gone too far. Now I'm singeing it. Don't do that. Okay. Oh, that looks quite cool. That's what can happen. If you go too far, you will singe your clay. Alright, anyway, so do what I say, don't do what I do. So you can see though, it's a bit hot at the minute. Can you see though how it's gone shiny? Okay, so that's what you end up getting. It's kind of like a ceramic effect. It's gone shiny. That's what you're trying to aim to do. Now again, you can leave it in the oven for some brands of clay. This is quite hot, I'm going to keep moving it. For some brands of clay, you can just literally just do this in the oven, leave it in the oven. You can do with Fimo as well, at the right temperature. Kato at the right temperature, then just take it out and give it a blast at the final minute, just to make that, get that sort of extra shiny part. But essentially, that's what you're doing and you're effectively creating a glaze using the alcohol inks and the liquid clay. Okay, so that's that part. Alright, once that's obviously cured, completely cooled down, you can see, look, where it's settled, where you've got parts of the raised design peeping through. Alright, that is very hot, I need to be careful. Alright, so you end up then with this lovely kind of ceramic effect piece that you can actually then use in a piece of jewellery or something else. So I think probably that is the main, probably they're the main points I think from today. Yeah, so once you've glazed these as well, they're ready to use, and you've done the backs. And the same with this, if you wanted to, obviously you can see, look, I've got an overspun on the back, I've just go around and sand that off. If you want to do the same on the back, you could do as well, put the colour on the back. And then the pieces are ready to use. So, if you've got any questions, obviously pop them at the end of the video, I will try and answer them. And what I'll do is I'll just put the main products in front and take a picture of those. Thank you. I'll put a main picture of them, of the main things that I've used, so that if you want to obviously go and go shopping and buying a few bits online, you can do that. As I say, any kind of liquid clay will be fine, just don't go for obviously the translucent, because you'll end up with a matte finish with it basically. Go for a completely transparent one, so Sculpey one, Fimo Deco Gel, that goes clear. Kato liquid clay, that also goes clear as well. Kato does in the oven cure at high temperature, okay, it does it at 150, so you'd have to turn it up to get that completely clear finish, okay? Oh good, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yes, I'm quite happy to come and keep doing these each week while we're in lockdown. Like, it's quite fun. I know Christy Frieson's doing one later as well. I think she's doing the Peacock, which I did with her in a workshop last year. She's brilliant. So obviously look out for that one as well. It's just nice to share a few things really, isn't it, I think, when we're in lockdown and we want something else to do and something to make. But you can have loads and loads of fun with these. And if you do make something, please share it with me. I would love to see what you do. Have a lovely Sunday afternoon. Oh, thanks, Pauline. I hopefully say you've enjoyed that. But any questions, you think of anything afterwards, either message me or just post them underneath here, and I'll keep coming checking them back. And hopefully I can answer any questions that you might have. All right. Thank you very much for watching with me. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.